numerous times on this, but Demetrius has decided to retire from football, and he's going to graduate in 3.5 years, which we're really, really proud of. Proud of the work that he's done here as a football player, as a student athlete at the University of Minnesota. Who will ever forget, right? The third and 30 catch on third down, and then also the fourth down catch to beat Georgia Southern. Not only that, who will forget the punt return when we brought the Axe back after a long time from Camp Randall in Wisconsin. So just like any of our student athletes, anyone who, whatever dreams, hopes, aspirations they all have, we support them in that. And if football's not a part of that, we support them 100% in that too. Demetrius did a lot for our program, did a lot for our student athletes here. He's an unbelievable advocate of the University of Minnesota, a wonderful person, and he's going to have a very, very bright future. So I just saw that he put that out there, and I just wanted to make sure that on his time he wanted to be able to put that out there when he was ready, and he put it out. I wanted to make sure I commented on that right away. So we wish him all the best. We're going to miss him. He's a tremendous football player, tremendous person. But again, as we keep moving forward, this thing's all about our players' dreams, hopes, and aspirations. And really proud of him for making that decision that he came to. That's best for him. And I think that's critical to understand. That's the best decision for him. And that's what we'll open with. So with that, we'll open up for questions.
All right. Thank you, Coach. We'll go to Ryan Burns with the first question.
Hey, PJ, I got a two-parter for you. Number one, are there any other opt-outs that you know about besides Demetrius Douglas? And what are your expectations like for your special teams unit in 2020?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think there's going to be guys that opt out, guys that opt back in. I won't get into the specifics of that because we're still 3 weeks away from the game. But, in terms of the special teams is going to be a big part of what we do. Special teams has always been a part of what we do. I think we've had a lot more time to work on it than we normally have had of any type of year that we've had based on the time we've had. We've been able to spend a lot more time on football than we normally have. Maybe not necessarily the practices right now, but when you're looking at since we were home and everybody was quarantining, those meetings of special teams really helped. The times with no pads with special teams have really helped for our fundamentals, our techniques. And I think Coach Wenger's got some great game plans together. We're deeper than we've been, maybe younger than we've been, but we're deeper at a lot of positions where we're going to have a lot of core guys on special teams, a lot of quad team members, which we're really excited about. But in terms of the opt-outs and opt-ins, like I said before, I think we'll kind of wait a few weeks to be able to get into that just to give everybody time to be able to do that. Not many, but I do want to make sure that I let people, have the time to be able to think about what they want to do or if they're going to do that. And like anything, no matter what guys decide, we'll support them 100%.
Thank you, Coach. Let's go to Dave Campbell, Associated Press.
Hey, PJ.
Hi, Dave.
I guess I'm just wondering how practice has gone, how you feel like the team is looking since the restart, so to speak, and how ready do you think you guys are for October 24th?
Well, it's that, Red Rover, send Dave over, right? Ready or not, here we come. And here comes the season. I think everybody's within that time frame, and everybody has that pressure on them to get their team ready. We talked to our team, as we talked about weeks ago, about the Goldilocks and Three Bears. What we do is got to be just right for our football team. It doesn't matter what somebody else is doing. What matters is what's best for our football team, our players, our situation, our youth, our experience, our depth. Everything's all those decisions are based on those things, and we'll continue to make those decisions that are best for our team as we keep moving forward. But we finally got a chance to get in pads last week, which I think was really good for the players. You could tell as you're going against each other at certain times with no pads. I'm just glad our guys, they bit when they had to bite. And when we practiced, we let them go, and it was really good to see, that we hadn't lost a beat. Now we got to practice. We got to get better at the physicality part of the game and the tackling part of the game and a lot of organized drills that we have. But, we're less than 3 weeks from a game right now. So you're combining a little bit of training camp, get ready, get full pads, have type scrimmage at times, but also you're less than 3 weeks away. So you've got to be able to balance that. Plus, you missed out on spring ball to tackle in live game types experiences with all the time they had off. But now we're able to catch back up on all that. But again, it's got to be just right. Can't be too much, can't be too little. It's got to be just right. And I think our players trust us with that right now, and they're really responding well.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Dave. Let's go to Andy Greeter, St. Paul Pioneer Press.
Hey, PJ.
Hi, Andy.
I wanted to ask about a few players now that we've talked about Douglas. Daniel Fa'alele, Braylon Oliver, can you update their status and when could we see a full roster?
Well, like I said, Andy, that's a really good question, and I'm going to wait to count, be specific on who we talk about, whether opt in, opt out, to give people the proper time, and not having names out there for people who have or haven't, so they can make the decision for themselves and not have added pressure from their name being out there. It's a time where things are really sensitive, and especially with the mental health approach to everything that we have, and that's the number one thing on the forefront of all of our minds of whether players want to, don't want to. I don't want to put that out there, and have people, calling them, telling them what they should or should not do at this point. There's probably going to be a few. There'll probably be a few that don't. But again, it's a small number. But again, Andy, I appreciate your question. I just don't want to get into specifics for that particular reason. There will be a time when I do tell you who's in, who's out. And that's why the updated roster, I haven't given that yet, because I'm still waiting on a few more. If that makes sense, of the decision they make. And I don't want to give you names and all of a sudden they opt in tomorrow, but I told you they opted out today or opt out yesterday and opted back in. I don't want that pressure on those student athletes to be able to make that type of decision. I want them to do it for all the right reasons and the reasons that they have with their families. So.
Thank you, Coach. Let's go to Matt Fortuna with The Athletic.
Hey, PJ, how are you?
Hey, Matt. I'm doing elite, man. Nice to see you.
You too. First, two-part question. First one is, this being the first year number 0 was allowed, how many of your guys were kind of pining to get that jersey number changed? And when Rashad ended up with it and decided to come back, in your conversations with him, how much of his decision to come back and to play a Big Ten football season this fall was about his off-field goals, about his off-field platform, and all the social justice changes that he hopes to be a part of?
Yeah, well, first of all, we urge every single one of our student athletes to be an advocate of change, no matter what. Change in a positive way, bring people together, connect them, have your positive servant leadership show. And I think when you look at our entire football team, we have a HERE campaign coming out here soon, which we'll introduce to our football team with the Leadership Council and other members of the team and I have been working on for months. And we'll have that come out here very soon, how our football team is going to be advocates of change as we continue to move forward. But when you're talking about the number 0, on offense, Demetrius Douglas originally came and asked me for it, and for all the right reasons. And when he decided to opt out and obviously retire from football, that nobody really asked me on offense. And then Rashad came back and told me what he was planning on doing if he had a chance to come back. And I thought it was tremendous. I thought the thought behind it, the sincerity behind it, and really the real parts behind of what he wanted to do, because he's been a big voice on our football team for change and ending racism in our country and in our world. So for him to be able to be as high profile as he is and also want to make a statement with his number and have meaning behind it, I'm all for it. I mean, here's a guy that's a bunch of words that have meaning behind it. I'm all for it. On defense, it was a little bit different because we had a flood of guys, I think, that want the number 0, and then you have to pick. And as a head coach, I think we've decided to only have one number 0 on this football team this year. And then as we go into years, we'll talk about the seniority of how numbers work and things like that and why you want to wear it. But I think Rashad's making that he's making that number something that I think not only will be represented this year in the way that he wants it represented, but I think it's a wonderful opportunity for years to come of somebody being an advocate of change and ending racism in America. And maybe that's something we adapt on our football team and have that person be that example of maybe what they've been in through their life or the stories they've seen. So if they can help other people and they can change lives and we can find a way to end racism and we can do our part. And if wearing a number 0 helps bring cause to that, like it has, and you're asking me a question about that, Matt, so it obviously must be, then he's doing all the right things. So really proud of all of our players for having those creative ideas and how they can be advocates of change. And that's how we'll move forward with that.
Thank you, Coach. Let's go to Meg Ryan with the Star Tribune.
Hi, PJ. Good to see you.
Hi, Meg. Good to see you too.
Wanted to ask, Rashad Bateman, he recently was sharing, that over the summer he had a battle with coronavirus, and that kind of influenced his decision about opting out because he had, had this kind of firsthand experience. And I was wanting to know if you could speak at all to how, the team found out about that. And, if he, I don't know, I don't think it happened during workouts, but if it did, if, other, players were potentially exposed, and kind of how you managed that when you had a case of COVID-19 on your team, and how you guys kind of supported Rashad through that, but then also made sure the other players were safe.
Yeah, we supported Rashad like we support all of our student athletes, from our doctors, from our trainers, from our medical teams on down. We take direct instruction from them. I think as you saw from Rashad's video that he placed out and what he said, I mean, he felt incredibly safe here. At the time, I'm not going to get into the specific medical prognosis of players when it comes to COVID-19 individually. They can do that themselves if they feel like they want to be able to make that information public. I think it's their right to be able to do that. But when you look at any time a player does test positive, protocols go into place immediately, and we've evolved of that. You look at back of why guys were opting out. There was no season. The outlook didn't look very good. When you're talking about contact tracing and you're talking about what happens if somebody gets it, there was a lot of answers around the country that I don't know. Our players got on calls with medical teams and to the doctors, to our players, not surprise, but surprise. And to the doctor's defense, I don't know was a very acceptable answer. I'd rather hear I don't know than some lie. And I think that was one of the starts of when you started to see a lot of people saying, well, listen, there's so much doubt to this. The season's talking about being canceled. We're going through what we're going through. There's not a lot of answers here. So who could blame student athletes around the country for opting out when you're talking about possibly going to make millions in the National Football League? And there's no true, clear cut process of keeping student athletes exactly the way they want to be kept safe when they're talking about getting to a season and play. Now, that happened to work itself out with the contact tracing somewhat being eliminated with the rapid testing that we have, the daily testing, the antigen testing. All of that has caught up. But at the time, that's where a lot of players were opting out. Any positives that we had on our team were handled through the protocols of our medical teams, the CDC, the state laws. And I thought our trainers deserve a lot of credit. Our trainers they go to school. They don't go to med school. They go to school to be a trainer. They have ankles and knees and hips and shoulders and this orthopedic, right, type training. Our trainers have worked day and night, overtime, put a lot of their health at risk to help our student athletes. They deserve a lot. Mike Sipniak and his staff of what they've been able to do. Our doctors, right, depending on what part of what area you specialize in being a doctor, it's all hands on deck. So it doesn't matter if you're an orthopedic, you're helping out with COVID. It doesn't matter if you're the number 2 trainer, you're helping out with COVID. These are what a lot of times people didn't sign up for, but everybody's willing to help. But again, to answer your question, I know it's a long answer to your question, Meg, but that's the best answer I can be able to give you right now, that we followed all the medical protocols and we still are. And I think when Rashad put that out that, Minnesota's the safest place for him, we take that personally. And because that's a lot of work from a lot of people inside our building and outside of our building, Dr. Nelson and his team and everybody involved and all of our workers every day that test our players that come over here. It doesn't go unnoticed whatsoever. And this is a team's effort. Everybody in the country is dealing with this. Everybody in the world's dealing with this. And us as coaching student athletes have to be able to follow the same guidelines as a lot of people. So I hope that answers your question, Meg.
All right, thank you, Coach. Let's go to Darren Wolfson, KSTP. Doogie, you ready?
PJ, thanks for doing this. Good to see you. I'm just curious.
See you too, man.
Presumably you've watched some games the last few weeks, SEC, Big 12, ACC. As you've watched, I guess, just what has stood out from your standpoint?
Well, I think the one thing that stood out is, football in 2020 is going to be really different than maybe what people have seen at times. It's not any less real than it's ever been. It's real, and it counts. But again, you can see that there's a lot of things that maybe you could have cleaned up over spring ball, over the off season. There's, when you look at the tackling, there's teams that tackle really well, teams that don't tackle very well. I think it's the issues we've all had as you go through a football game. For us, the tackling's huge, the ball is huge, right? And the explosive plays are huge. And there's either a lot more of them, a lot less of them, depending on who's on the winning side and the losing side. But everybody's in the same boat, right? You're talking about a lot of fans, no fans, some fans. It's unique. And so I think everybody's dealt with it a little bit differently. You have to make sure your entire football team is ready. There's a lot of times you're listening to those announcers and they're listing off the coaches and the staff members and even the players that are out for that game. You've got to be able to adjust and adapt on the run very differently than you did if there's an ankle or an injury. You get tested on a Friday and you test positive on a Friday, somehow, some way, no matter what test they have to back it up, you're out. So you could have a false positive on Friday and you're out Saturday. And usually injury status, Doogie, if guy's going to make it or not. You know how to be able to prepare come a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday practice to get that person ready when you know there's going to be an injury and who's going to play or not. COVID, you don't have those. And so you could have prepared a guy all week and he didn't play. And the next thing you know, you could have two guys that didn't play at that position and you're playing a guy who might not be as ready or have played as much football. So I think that's what I've seen. It's either been a lot better or a lot worse. I think those are the extremes. It's a little less football in the middle. It's a little bit more on these ends, depending on who did it better for longer. So, but it's been exciting to watch. It's been unique and different, which a lot of you probably feel the same way. But it's football. It's real. It's here. And we're excited to get going.
Thank you, Doogie. Thank you, Coach. Let's go back to Andy Peter, St. Paul Pioneer Press.
PJ, you guys have benefited from veteran linebackers for a few years now. Thomas Barber, Kamal, Cashman. With Mariano, is he still playing primarily Mike? And how much have you seen him step up to keep that standard that you guys have had at that spot?
Yeah, the one thing about Mariano is, one, he's one of the most intelligent, if not the most intelligent player we have on our football team. Not only that, I would probably rank him in the top 3 of who loves football the most. And you take a really smart player, right, who are usually better players, the real smart ones, and then you match that love for football. That's what you see in his style of play. And I think our defense is taking over his personality. They always say you take over your coach's personality. That's true, but you also take over the leaders on your offense, defense, special teams personality of guys that draw a line in the sand. He is a prototypical Big Ten linebacker. He's tough. He's mentally tough. He's physical. He can run. He'll surprise you how fast he really is. And he's usually a step ahead of everybody else. He is basically Joe Rossi Jr. on the field, but he can play Mike, Sam, Will. If we're in base, he can play Sam. He goes between the Will and the Mike, depending on who's next to him. And that's what we're going to have to be able to find out as we keep going forward. The DJ Gordons, the Donald Willises of the world, the Cody Lindenbergs, who's had a really good camp. Whether Braylon gets healthy or not as we keep moving forward. You start getting into who's going to play and how much they're going to play. We're training a lot of guys that haven't played a lot of football, but if there's one guy who's played enough football to lead the football team, everybody knows it's Mariano. He played in some of the biggest games we had last year and had the most tackles in those games. But he is what you want when you draw up a middle linebacker or an outside backer in football. And we're so thankful to have him. He's one of the best people on our football team, one of the best students on our football team, on and off the field. And we expect big things out of him. And I know he expects big things out of himself. It's not like I'm saying that he doesn't know that. If there's one person that's going to put more pressure on himself than me, it's going to be Mariano.
We're going to take 2 more. We're going to go to Jim Rich with Fox 9, and then we'll finish with Mag Ryan, Star Tribune. So Jim
Hi,
Rich,
Jim.
you're up next.
Hey, PJ. With Bateman back, how much does it change what you can do offensively this year? Like, where was your offense before when you thought he was gone, and now that he returns? How big a difference can he make for this offense this season?
Well, a lot of the time that he was gone, we were in and out, so we weren't necessarily all together. So our offense with him in was our offense with him was when he was in. Our offense with him out really didn't change a lot. To be honest with you, but if we didn't have them, we're just gonna need more production from other people, and you're gonna have to find a way to get it somehow, some way, whether through the run game, whether that's through the tight end production, whether that's through the other running backs that are gonna have to step up. But again, when you look at our wide receiver core, we got a lot of guys who haven't played a lot of football here who are having really good camps, if you want to call it. But Rashad Bateman changes a lot of things, not necessarily maybe even for our offense, but it changes things for opposing defenses. Having him in there is critical. It's critical to have a player like that where people have to focus on. They either got to put more people in the box to stop the run or put another person over him to take him out of the box to stop him in the pass game, which I think Rashad benefited a little bit of last year. He's a returning wide receiver of the year in the Big Ten. But when you look at Tyler's production, there was times where they double Tyler and leave Rashad one-on-one. and then they'd still have to be able to load the box somehow, some way. So now you've got the Rashad Bateman, and you got Chris Altman-Bell, and you've got Mohammed, and you've got tight ends now who have really developed. And now all of a sudden, when you look around, we want everybody who's on the field to be able to make big plays and to be able to make the plays they're capable of making. And when you look at Matt Simon and what Mike Sanford have done, Matt Simon and Mike Sanford have done, I think they've brought everybody into the mix for the first time since we've been here. But that's exciting. So it necessarily, hasn't changed, but it's a lot better when he's in there. And no player makes or breaks a team. But when you lose a lot of your best players, or an NFL team loses their starting quarterback, it's hard to be able to duplicate that. Can you replace that as you play? Sure. Can you do that in recruiting? Sure. But you and I, we didn't plan on having Rashad Bateman for 2 years. You at least plan on having guys for 3. And I said before, we're going to have to start getting used to players having decisions after 3 years, whether they should come out or not. That means you're recruiting the right players, you're building your program the right way, and you've got talent across the board. So if anything, we've got to look at how we're doing it in terms of the recruiting process to make sure that those guys that are here can be able to play right away if you do lose a guy in 3 years.
All right. And before we get to Meg, just as a reminder, we will have Rashad Bateman available at 4 p.m. via Zoom press conference, which everyone has the link in their email. So we'll take one last question for Coach. Meg and Ryan, Star Tribune, go ahead.
Hi, BJ. So not talking about a specific player, but I guess I just kind of want to get the details right of when you have a player that tests positive, how do you guys go about supporting them? Because obviously, they're kind of in their apartment or their dorm room or whatever, quarantined. But how do you guys make sure that they're okay when they are separated from the team like that? Is it do you make sure they, drop off food for them or send doctors over? I just kind of wanted, I guess I don't really know how that all works. And I didn't know if you could kind of share for any player that might test positive, how you guys go about making sure that they're okay when they are separated.
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing on everybody's mind. And I think that's where our medical staff comes in. You're not having the head coach take over all the medical protocols and having me check in, not to be sarcastic with that part, but it's true. We take it very, very seriously. When somebody tests positive, they go immediately into quarantine, away from their roommates, away from the football team. They're constantly checked on by our medical staff constantly throughout the day. Same thing with our coaching staff. We've had a lot of guys who continued to be in meetings and continue to be on Zoom calls, continue to have position meetings, because you have the technology to be able to do that. But the number one thing is the health and safety of our football team, making sure that they're not around the football team, making sure they're completely isolated and quarantined. All the food that they need is brought to them. So again, they're taken care of that way. Nobody feels isolated, like they have some type of, that they're not touched and nobody can be around them. Nobody can drop something off. But again, you have to take it very seriously and make sure they are quarantined. The contact tracing, that's the big part of that. People are interviewed. If they do test positive, who they've been around, how long they've been around them, were they within 6 feet, were they without a mask? And then that player provides a lot of details. We've lost a lot of players in contact tracing for a few days and a few weeks because we demand the honesty of exactly who you are around. This isn't about saving face. This isn't about protecting a student athlete. This isn't about protecting your buddy. This is about making sure that we have a very safe playing field. And I think our players have done an absolutely amazing job of that. I think our medical team has done an outstanding job of that. Our training staff has done a great job of that, of making sure that our players are well taken care of, if anything, on the extreme positive level. So, I feel like our guys have done everything they can possibly do in the environment that they're all in. So the rapid testing has definitely helped, Meg, with being able to test every single day, whether there's going to be people that are contagious in the building immediately, which before it was, once or twice a week. And it was, within those days, that was hard. Because that contact tracing, that list got really long. There were more people with contact tracing than there are actually with the COVID virus. And I give our players a lot of credit for the names. And again, sometimes you get pulled into it and you're like, well, I was just around that person for 1 second. But again, we'd rather err on the safe side than have somebody spread it throughout our team. So, but I thought everybody's done a really good job of it, Meg.
All right. Thank you, Coach. We'll have Mariano Sori-Marin up here in a moment. So thank you very much, Coach. All right, Mariano has joined us now. If you have a question for him, go ahead, send me a message in chat, and we'll just go right to questions. So again, if you have a message, send me a note in chat, and then we'll go right there. So we'll start with Andy Greeter, St. Paul Pioneer Press.
Mariano, PJ was just up there talking about kind of your intellect on the field. If you didn't come to Minnesota, where were you going to go? I saw there are a number of Ivy League schools on your list, and how do you feel like you kind of understand and process the game?
Yeah, Coach Fleck and the staff kind of recruited me at a time when I didn't have a lot of offers, from bigger schools. I was looking at Ivy League schools, Patriot schools out on the East Coast with, high academic standings like University of Minnesota and things like that. But, I really didn't have a lot of big schools. So when the University of Minnesota came and talked to me, it was kind of a shift. I really wasn't thinking that I was going to get anything big. So I was kind of like just looking at academics at the time, but I knew what I was capable of doing. I suffered some injuries my sophomore and junior year. So I was just hoping and praying that something would come through. And when finally the University of Minnesota and Coach Fleck, trusted in me, I knew it was the right fit. We have the combination here of phenomenal sports. University of Minnesota is one of the most historic football programs in the country. And, we're starting to bring that back, as well as one of the best academic schools in the country with the Carlson School of Management, where I'm studying finance. Just bringing those two things together, I really felt that this was the best fit. And taking my, academics and translating it to, a football standpoint, I've just become really a student of the game. Learning from guys like Thomas Barber and Kamal that were, exceptional students of the game, constantly doing film study, teaching me things like that. I was able to take that and help that accelerate my game. Coach Fleck said, sometimes he's a step ahead, and that's just from preparation. Sometimes you're going to line up from guys that are bigger, faster, stronger than you. But if you, know what your responsibility is and can play at an elite speed and have that mental, intuition of what's going to come next, it's just going to only propel you in your game. So like I said, I really focused this offseason on being a student of the game, film study, and especially with quarantine, it was a great opportunity. We kind of focused on the mental part of the game. We were away from each other. We were at home quarantining, so we had a lot of Zoom calls. We couldn't, get in person and practice and do things of that nature. So, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I was just really opening up the playbook and really studying from that aspect that's now going to pay off this season.
All right, thank you, Mariano. Thank you, Andy. We will go to Darren Wolfson with KSTP. Doogie, go ahead.
Mariano, thanks for doing this. Curious, now with the calendar flipping to October, with the pads coming on, how much more real does October 24th feel?
Yeah, it's been a while since the pads have been on. I think it was our third spring ball practice right before we took a little break for spring break was the last time we actually put shoulder pads on, and we didn't even go full pads that day, I believe. So it's honestly it's approaching a year since we've finally hit. And so now that this last week we were able to finally put the pads on, it's real. And, this defense and this team knows the urgency that we need to have at practices, and now it's just time to go. So it's honestly really exciting. The guys were chomping at the bit to finally be able to start hitting each other. We had done a lot of walkthroughs throughout the summer, and then there was a period where we could only have the helmets and the spiders on. And, you know how it goes. You're with your teammates, you can't hit them. It builds up. It builds up over a while. So finally, we were able to put the pads on. We were able to do some, live periods, some scrimmages, some live tackling drills, things like that. And we were able to compete with each other. So October 4th is right around the corner. And, this team is right where we need to be, and we need to continue to get better in these next 3 weeks. But we're right where we need to be. And I think guys are really excited about what's to come.
All right, just as a reminder, if you have a question, send me a message in chat. Next, we'll go to Meg Ryan with the Star Tribune.
Mariano, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see your face virtually. Feel good. I wanted to ask, obviously last year, even last couple of years, there's been some really big presences on defense, right? You've had some, real talented guys that have been starting for a long time and had kind of developed this leadership. Now that you're kind of stepping into that role, and there's a couple of you guys on defense that are stepping into bigger roles, how have you maybe started to develop that leadership or take on that leadership role, especially during this time when you didn't get a full spring ball and you were kind of, it was voluntary workouts and maybe you were kind of distanced from your teammates. Like, it hasn't been the same as in years past. So how have you been able to kind of build up that quality or feel prepared to kind of take on that bigger role within the team when it's been a little bit different this year?
Right. And I think during this time, as different as it's been, it's actually helped improve my leadership and help improve everybody that needed to be a leader on this team during this time, because during much of the time we were away from coaches, we were away from the facility and things like that. So guys really needed to step up and take responsibility of the football team and be a player-led team. So, when we were quarantined in the spring and things like that, I was organizing, Zoom calls with linebackers, things like that, organizing Zoom calls with the defense. So that was a way that I could start my leadership. But then once the summer came, we were without coaches for the entire summer, basically. So they were all player-led workouts, player-led captains practices, player-led film sessions, things like that. So it was really put on a lot of leaders' shoulders. And so I felt that was a great opportunity for me to, show my leadership traits and work with other leaders on the team, guys like Tanner Morgan, Mo Ibrahim, Coney Durr on defense. We were able to just take control of this team and, accelerate our growth throughout the summer. Even without the coaches, we were able to make, the progress that we missed during spring ball and actually accelerate us into a time where the coaches were able to get back on the field with us. So we didn't skip a beat. We were ready for when the coaches came and we just took off from there.
Mariano, thank you. We'll go to Dave Campbell, Associated Press.
Mariano, thanks for doing this. Just wondering about at linebacker. There's been such a line of really good players at that position. Have come before you. I guess how have you sort of looked at the leadership part of your role this year? Kind of off the field as much as on.
Yeah, it's been a great line of linebackers since I came in here as a freshman with Blake Cashman. He's in the NFL now, and then guys like Kamal and Thomas Barber. So I was able to experience how they led as linebackers of the defense and leaders of the defense and sort of mold it into my own way of leadership, because everybody has different leadership qualities, and you take, from what you've learned and combine it with your own personal style, and then you roll with it. But as far as my leadership, I'm working with a lot of young guys on defense. I'm still a young guy. It's like, I sometimes think I'm a vet, but no, I'm actually really a young guy. I started in 7, 8, 9 games last year, but I don't have that 2-3 year experience like guys that I used to, play with, like Kamal and Barber and things like that. So I have to work with guys like Coney Durr that have, tremendous experience. He's going to be a 5th year senior, and guys like Micah Treadway that have come from Notre Dame, and, he's now a 5th year senior. So I have to work with the older guys as well as the younger guys to, bring together the defense and create a style of leadership that's going to work with, an unexperienced defense. But, we're really looking forward to showing what we're capable, and we know what we're capable of.
All right, we'll go to Eric Stracht. Eric.
Hi, Mariano. Thanks for doing this. My question's on you guys having a lot of new pieces on defense, a lot of guys that fans aren't necessarily going to know very well. Is there anybody who has popped early on in practice this fall who fans should be excited about that you've seen, who have kind of made their presence known with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think at every single position there's studs on this defense, and I think that fans are going to be really excited about, a lot of guys on this team, and, we're excited to get after it. But a few guys in particular are Big O at our defensive end spot. He's come through as probably going to be one of the best defensive ends in the country, and he's capable of doing that. He's really studied hard this offseason. He's got bigger, he's gotten faster, he's gotten stronger, and, he's learned from a guy like Winston Vladimir, what it takes to get the job done, and he's just an athletic freak. So I'm really excited about playing behind Big O. He's a tremendous leader as well on the D-line, as well as the entire team, and, fans should be really excited about him. And also Boye Mafe on the other side. He's the athletic freak. He's a tremendous leader. He's very smart. And, you know, it's going to be tough for offenses to block him and, you know, to scheme against him because he's just going to be all over the field. So I think that there's guys all over that I could sit here and talk about, but those two guys in particular, I've really noticed, you know, them stepping up with their play as well as their leadership. And I think fans should be really excited about them.
All right, we'll go back to Meg Ryan with the Star Tribune.
Mariano, so we were just hearing from PJ, and I think I've heard this from Joe Rossi too, but they kind of rank you as like one of the smartest guys on the team, especially when it comes to like just the football, the understanding of the game, and wanting to kind of have that deeper knowledge of the game. Where does that come from for you? Like, how did you, I guess, develop that? Is it just over the years of playing, or is it something you just like to study up on, or kind of just take me through like the mental aspect of the game and how you've kind of gotten so, I guess, well-versed in it?
Yeah, you know, so I like studying, you know, like people think of me as a little bit of a nerd sometimes, you know, in academics, and then that translates over to football. But, you know, I've actually developed a really, really love for just watching film and studying schemes and things like that. And it's actually like kind of influenced me to maybe consider coaching when I'm older, either at the college level or high school or whatever it may take me. But yeah, you know, so last year I had to play 3 multiple positions. I had to play Sam, Mike, and Will. And, you know, there's a lot of different moving parts in the defense. You know, with each position, you're working with different guys. You have to know different calls, different schemes. So for me to have to know all of those, I really had to just understand the big picture of the defense. And I felt like when I was able to put all 3 different positions together and get a full picture of the defense, it just helped me completely with my game. You know, I know where my help is on both sides. I know where guys are supposed to fit. I can help any position with, you know, where they're supposed to read and where they're supposed to fit and things like that. But it just also helps me understand like where the weaknesses are in the defense, where the strengths are, where we're looking to put the ball, things of that nature, where the coverages are supposed to rotate, things like that. So it just helps me get a good understanding and helps me make plays, you know, just because I have that big picture understanding.
Let's go back to Andy Greeter, St. Paul Pioneer Press.
Mariano, I remember to the season opener last year and maybe some struggles in assignments for you filling in for Kamal. How did you digest that game for yourself and lessen the learning curve over the year?
Yeah, you know, I just worked with, you know, big testament to Thomas Barber and Kamal. You know, they worked with me to make those corrections, and I just worked on changing my best. And that's just a testament to all the guys in this program. You know, they work with you, guys embrace you, they take you in, and we want to see each other grow. So I was able to take the results of that and respond with it. So, you know, obviously there was some mistakes, but you know, I didn't let those happen again. And I just continued to study up what my responsibilities were and make sure that I responded with elite process and make sure that I changed my best.
It looks like we have one final question that goes to Randy Johnson with the Star Tribune. Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Mariano. In your years here, where do you feel you have improved most as a linebacker, and what things do you feel you need most to work on this year?
Yeah, I feel like I've improved most with my vision. You know, last year I'd be kind of just keyed in on what's my responsibility on this play, what's my key on this play, and then sort of just get to where I needed to be. But, you know, now with a bigger understanding of the entire defense and understanding of my role, you know, I can expand my vision across the field. I can feel things on the backside, front side that maybe I wouldn't have last year, just focusing in on my singular key. And that helps me to make plays that I wouldn't have been able to do last year. So I feel like just the vision is the best part of my game that I've improved on right now. And an area that I'm continuing to work on is, and that I feel that I need to get better at. I mean, obviously I need to get better at everything, but is my pass coverage. You know, last year there was a few times where maybe I wasn't matching routes tight enough, or maybe in man coverage I didn't have the right technique and things like that. So I've continued to work on my pass coverage skills and you know, just getting out of, you know, maybe on RPOs and play action passes, stepping up, getting out of the stacks and getting into windows. So things of that nature, just to improve, you know, my pass game as well.
All right, I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank Mariano. I want to thank Coach Fleck. So as a reminder, we'll have Rashad Bateman at 4 p.m. That Zoom link is in your emails. and I will share audio and video from these press conferences in our digital press box as well. So Mariano, thank you very much, and thank everyone for joining.
Thank you. Have a good day.